All right. My name is Laura Ferguson. I'm the district conservationist in the West Pottawatomie County Field Office for NRCS. So if anyone isn't familiar with NRCS, we have field offices located in all counties across Iowa, and there's actually two in Pottawatomie County. And we offer one-on-one conservation planning assistance with operators and landowners. So I'll just touch on four of our major programs today. That includes EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program, the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, and the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. So EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, that is one of our major programs that offers financial assistance for farmers and landowners. And um, we so for this program, we focus on a particular land unit or a resource concern, which might be something like soil erosion, wildlife habitat improvement, if you have livestock needs, things like that. So the common practices that we can offer cost share on here in Iowa can include things like cover crops. If you are interested in installing some wildlife habitat on your farm, or if you would like to expand your livestock system, we can cost share on practices like watering systems, prescribed grazing, fence, livestock pipeline, anything like that. And so we accept applications year round, but right now we are still accepting applications for 2024 funding. That cutoff date is April 5th if you would like funding consideration for 2024. But like I said, we do take applications year round. And there's various initiatives in the EQIP program, and I just would like to touch on a few of those today. We have an organic initiative, a high tunnel initiative, northern bobwhite quail, and there's a new funding pool that I'm excited about that's focused on small scale and urban ag. So for the organic initiative, some common practices are organic management. This is a new practice that just started last year, and essentially the way I like to describe it is it provides a initiative payment for organic producers or producers who are transitioning to organic production. And essentially what it requires is to be eligible, your soil loss has to be below what we call T, or the tolerable soil loss limit. Um, and then essentially what this practice requires is just some record keeping. A lot of what producers are already doing if they are organic certified or transitioning to organic. And essentially it'll just provide a supplemental payment per acre. So for your traditional row crops, that that cost share amount is between $200 to $250 an acre. And we do have a small scale option. So if you're farming about 5 acres or less, there is a higher payment rate, which is anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 an acre for their small scale practices. Other practices we can cost share on in the organic initiative pool are cover crops, conservation crop rotation, nutrient and pest management, if you need to establish buffers, and if you are needing an organic transition plan. And like I said, if you're eligible for this, if you're certified organic or if you're transitioning to organic. And within that organic pool, there's actually a separate pot of money specifically for just those transitioning acres. And if you're interested in that program, we are taking applications up until March 1st for 2024 funding for the transition. Another initiative that we have is the high tunnel, also called hoop houses. And these are meant to extend the growing season. We can cost share on supporting practices like mulching. If you would like to do a seeding around your high tunnel to protect from erosion. And also we do have producers that plant cover crops within their high tunnel to improve soil health. So these are all cost share practices that we can add on to your high tunnel application. And this year was actually the first year that we had what NRCS calls an Act Now sign up, which is essentially a fast pass through the typical equip sign up. So, normally you'd put in an application and you might have to wait a few months to get that money and get that contract obligated. But with this Act Now initiative, you can put in an application and us at NRCS will rank your application. And if it meets a minimum ranking threshold, then it is eligible for funding within 30 days. So that's an exciting new thing that we have going on. I'm hoping that's going to be an option again next year, but it essentially just expedites the process of getting funded for these high tunnels. So this new initiative we have this year, I personally don't have that much information about it yet. I just know that it will be an option coming up here in the next couple months, and it is focused on small scale and urban ag. And it'll cost share on practices like if you want to do cover crops on a smaller scale, there's a low tunnel system and composting facilities and soil carbon amendments. These are all options to receive cost share in this pool. So the soil carbon amendments, that would be things like compost and biochar. And this is brand new this year, still waiting for more information about it, but I'm sure that'll provide a lot more opportunities to some of our smaller scale farmers. One last initiative I'll just mention briefly. This is the Northern Bobwhite Quail Initiative. This is for counties, I think it's the southern 3 tiers in Iowa, but it also includes Harrison County. So the bottom 3 tiers plus Harrison County are eligible for this if you're interested in installing any wildlife habitat. So conservation cover, brush management, prescribed burning, establishing trees, these are all options through this funding pool. All right, so I'll switch gears. I'll talk a little bit about the Conservation Stewardship Program, otherwise known as CSP. This is a program that's designed for the operator. It is a 5-year contract and you receive an annual payment each year. And this program is kind of designed to reward those producers and landowners who are already doing good conservation on their ground. And so the minimum payment each year is $4,000. There's no minimum acre requirement. I believe that the minimum acre requirement is 0.1 acres. So you can enroll farmstead if you have a garden that's eligible, pasture, crop ground, forest ground. Those are all eligible for this program. And then in addition to that minimum payment each year, you can receive supplemental payments if you're wanting to install any more practices. So that could be things like cover crops, if you're doing a pollinator planting, anything like that. This one I'll just touch on real quick. This is our agricultural conservation easement program. This is a wetland program. So I personally am not an expert on this. We have wetland specialists and easement specialists in each of our areas here in Iowa. So if you do have a wetland on your property and are interested in getting permanent protection on that land, I recommend reaching out to your local NRCS field office and they can connect you with an easement specialist. One caveat here is they typically are looking at more acres. So typically it's about 35 acres or more to be eligible for this program. But if you have a wetland that you're interested in protecting, I encourage you to reach out. And I think either Lance or Kara might be touching on this a bit too. This is the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, or the RCPP. And the one we have here in Southwest Iowa is the West Nishnabotna Water Quality and Infrastructure Partnership. And the primary partner for that is Golden Hills. It covers portions of the following counties: Fremont, Mills, Montgomery, Page, Pottawatomie, and Shelby. And this is a program that it's very similar to EQIP in a way, but it kind of focuses down that target. So you have a smaller variety of conservation practices that it's focused on. This one, for example, is focused on stream bank protection along the West Nishnabotna River. There's also funding available for grade stabilization structures, bioreactors, terraces, and cover crops. So here's just a few numbers that I'll share. These are our 2023 Iowa NRCS program results. So as you can see, we've got a lot of conservation on the ground this past year, and this year is going to be another record amount of funding available. So I encourage anyone who's interested in receiving some cost share for conservation to reach out to your local office. And here is my contact info if anyone has any questions. And real quick, before I turn it over to Tabitha, I just wanted to share, can everybody see this flyer okay?
No, I can't see the flyer. You see the
Okay,
PowerPoint.
gotcha. Okay, is that
Yep.
working
No,
now?
I see it.
Okay. So we do have a soil health conference coming up here in Southwest Iowa. If anyone is interested in learning about soil health tips and tricks, we've got some excellent speakers lined up. Jay Fuhr, he's a soil health pioneer. He is a retired NRCS soil health specialist, but he really kind of started the soil health movement. We're really excited to have him here. This conference will be on March 6th in Atlantic. And if anyone is interested, you can RSVP to me. It is a free conference and we are very excited about it. All right, I will turn it over to Tabitha.
Thanks so much, Laura, and awesome job.
Questions right now for Laura, we can either unmute or type in the chat.
You're going to
And
have
if you
to
think of
allow me
something
to
later,
share
feel free to
Lance.
type it in too. Okay, I'll make you, let's see. I'll make you co-host. Okay, now can you?
Yes, I can. All right. Okay, can everyone see my slides okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Nice job, Laura. So my name's Tabitha Panas, and I work in the same office as Laura. We're both out of the West Potawatomi Service Center in Council Bluffs. I work for Pheasants Forever. I'm a partner employee to the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And I'm a wildlife biologist that works in 3 counties, Harrison, Potawatomi, and Shelby counties. And after listening to Laura's awesome rundown of all those programs, one thing I just wanted to emphasize is that it's completely free of charge to work with us. We provide technical and program assistance to any landowners. So if you feel a little bit overwhelmed as we talk about all these different programs, just know that you don't need to know which one you want to apply for. All I would encourage folks to do is just kind of think about their goals on their farm and then call us out for a site visit because we'd be happy to meet with you and just take a look and see what program we might think would work best and benefit you. So all conservation we do is voluntary, so you can kind of pick and choose which practices you'd like to do out of any recommendations that we might have for you. And so I'm going to talk about 2 different programs today. I'm going to give a quick rundown of the Conservation Reserve Program, as well as the DNR Prairie Partners Program. And so in thinking about the programs that Laura talked about, those are really kind of in-field operational programs. And these are kind of programs for folks who might be solving resource concerns with planting a perennial cover. A perennial cover can be anything from a simple brome mix, which we try to stray folks away from unless it's areas of severe erosion, up to diverse prairie reconstructions. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about the Conservation Reserve Program here. So what practices are available through the Conservation Reserve Program? What might you be implementing? So there are 1 through 88 different practices in the Conservation Reserve Program, and we do probably commonly about 30 some of them in Iowa. So there are practices from farm windbreaks, tree plantings, grass waterways in areas of concentrated erosion, riparian buffers for our waterways, filter strips, wetland restorations, prairie strips, pollinator habitat, or other diverse native seedings. So they're really any type of perennial cover you could imagine on whatever type of farm ground you're dealing with. There often are solutions for that. So just a quick rundown of kind of what would make a producer eligible for the Conservation Reserve Program. You must have cropping history with the Farm Service Agency. So Laura and I work for NRCS. Right across the room from us on the other side is the Farm Service Agency. And these two organizations are what are going to make up your local USDA service center. So right now, the Conservation Reserve Program is looking at years 2012 through 2017, and they need established crop history from years 4 out of 6 years from 2012 through 2017 to be eligible for the Conservation Reserve Program. Now, we are running off of the 2018 Farm Bill currently, and Congress is set to come up with a Farm Bill, hopefully, if all goes well, by October of 2024. They've actually extended the 2018 Farm Bill an extra year. So those cropping history dates will change soon. So one thing I would encourage producers, if you are not currently certifying your crop with the Farm Service Agency, would be to start to do so now. For one, that will help start to build those cropping history years for the Conservation Reserve Program. But we also have other programs too, like EQIP or the Conservation Stewardship Program, where you do need to show that you have owned or operated that ground for at least a year. And so you do want to certify that crop so that we can show that you have an investment in that farm and the operation, making you eligible for other programs as well. So typically CRP contracts are going to be 10 to 15 years in length. And again, those are on crop ground acres. What a producer will receive in exchange for planting this perennial cover will be an annual rental rate. So you'll get an annual payment, which is based off of the county average soil types. And so these are set at typically 85 to 90% of your county soil rental rate. And they're set at slightly lower than what that ground could be rented out for, just not to compete with farming. There are a couple bonuses here, the sign-up incentive payment and the practice incentive payment. Those are kind of first year sign-up bonuses. And then currently with the Farm Bill that we're operating under now through October of 2024, the establishment cost share is really good. So we're paying 90% of the cost to establish upfront, and then that remaining 10% in year 5. So a producer or a farmer is essentially getting 100% cost share to establish it. So that could be, if you're doing a riparian buffer, the cost of seedbed prep, planting, cost of trees. If you're doing a diverse prairie reconstruction, that might be planting a cover crop and then terminating that to seed a diverse prairie reconstruction and the cost of that seed. So cost share for establishment right now is really good. Historically, it's been 50%. And so right now it's really awesome that our farmers are getting the entire cost covered up front to implement those practices. So I just wanted to highlight a couple different practices that are available. One would be filter strips. That's what we call CP21. Remember when I said earlier, we have 1 through 88. This is our 21. Filter strips, those are 20 to 120 foot in width, and those go along a stream, a creek, or other waterways that have a perennial or intermittent flow. So they don't always need to be flowing, but just waterways that maybe in higher rain events or periodically throughout the year will have flow. And the reason we're doing this is to promote a perennial cover that kind of provides a buffer for those waterways so that we're not farming right up to our creeks. It's going to help reduce herbicide, nitrates, sediment from reaching our waterways and overall improve water quality. And they also can be a native cover too. Typically, a lot of times we see folks plant brome seeding on these, which is awesome, but we also do a lot of diverse native seedings on our filter strips too. Oop, we have filter strips here again, but that's just kind of a nice image showing how those meander along the stream, providing a good buffer. We have wetland restoration practices. So these are going to be applied. We see a lot of these in the prairie pothole region of Iowa, like north central, but they could also be applicable in the Missouri River floodplain or other areas where you typically see mucky hydric soils. And so these again are a 10 to 15-year contract length, and we're restoring that wetland to the best, I guess, historical conditions that it would have been that we can. So that might involve like breaking tile, it might involve some earthwork, but it doesn't necessarily have to. And these are great for wildlife habitat, providing habitat for ducks, geese, waterfowl, but they also are improving water quality and taking out our lower yielding acres. So that's a lot of times ground that you see like this that has standing water in this image. Those typically are not getting a very good crop off them at all. So we can really help a farmer improve their return on investment by taking out those lower yielding acres, and then they can farm the best and retire the rest. And also one interesting thing, not to get too off topic, but a lot of times when you see water pooling like this, typically I always thought that those plants, like if you're doing corn or soybeans, those would like have excess water and be like waterlogged. But actually what ends up happening is the water is sitting on the top of that soil there and it's not infiltrating. So later in the year, a lot of times we see those same crops burn up because the water didn't move down into the soil. It sat on the top and evaporated. So later on they can actually be too dry, which is just kind of an interesting thing. Back when I was in the prairie pothole region, we would see that. Here's another wetland restoration practice, CP23. Nice picture. This one would be after it's been seeded down and restored. Habitat buffers are another practice. So this is an infield conservation practice. Typically we apply them on the contour and they can help slow water and sediment traveling down a hillside. This through the CP33 are actually called quail buffers. So we do plant those to a more diverse native grass and wildflower mix. Pollinator habitat, our CP42 practices. Currently, those offers are limited to 10 acres per farm or 10% of the total cropland on the farm, which is a pretty decent size. Those acre limitations are through our continuous sign up. Through our general, we do offer larger pollinator acres as well, but this is another practice that is geared specifically towards our invertebrates and helping to provide them pollen, nectar, forage, and habitat year long. So we have things that bloom in the spring, summer, and fall to provide that food source all year round. Prairie strips is another practice we have. These are diverse native mixes. These can be applied on edge of field, throughout field, pretty much a lot of different areas you can apply these. And so finally, just going to kind of wrap up talking about the Conservation Reserve Program. Make sure to certify your crop with the Farm Service Agency. Crop certification is done annually by June 15th. And actually, I was supposed to change that to the July 15th. Oops. So July 15th is the date on there. That's an error in my slide. I'll have to change that if we send these out. But July 15th, you need to certify your crops with the Farm Service Agency to get that cropping history to be eligible for the Conservation Reserve Program or other programs that require that proof of operating, like I mentioned before. And so if you miss that July 15th deadline, it's a $45 fee to late certify, but you can only late certify for 1 calendar year after you've missed the deadline. I've actually had a producer go through that recently and pay that $45 late certification fee so that they could show that they were certified for their year prior. So good information to know. It is unfortunate. Sometimes I run into folks who say, oh, I've been farming this for 2 decades, but we don't have any crop certification on that. And so we can really only certify pretty much like 1 year in the past. You can't late certify further than that. So my recommendation would just be to start working with your Farm Service Agency and getting that done on a regular basis to be eligible for some of these benefits. And then finally, this is the second to last slide that I have. I just wanted to touch on the DNR Prairie Partners program. This is a partnership between Pheasants Forever, the Iowa Native Seed Growers, and the Department of Natural Resources. It's a very simple program. Unlike some of our other federal programs that can take a little bit longer to work through, this one has very little eligibility or sign up period. It's essentially just get in contact with me or your other local wildlife private lands biologist, and they can help get you in touch with this program. So it provides a seed voucher for 50% off the cost of native prairie seed. And so this doesn't have to be on crop ground. This can be on a farmstead, on any fallow or odd acres. And contracts are minimum of 2 acres typically, but I've got some approved for like 1.5 acres. So I think they're a little bit flexible on that. You do need to purchase your seed from one of the 6 Iowa native seed growers that are in that partnership. So there are a number of them on there, like Ozenba, Allen Dan, Pheasants Forever, Custom Seed Services out of Panama is probably one of the closer ones too. But if you're interested in that, just get in touch with our office and we can assist you in getting that seed voucher. And that's all I have. So here's my contact information, my email and my work cell. If anybody has any questions, I'd be super happy to work with them. Again, like I said, Laura and I work in the same office, and that's a big part of what we do is go meet with folks on their farm and do a preliminary assessment, get an idea of their goals, and see what programs or practices might benefit their farm. And there also is no obligation in working with us to sign up for or go through any program. We provide free technical assistance regardless if a person is going to apply for funding or not. So the Natural Resources Conservation Service is a great asset. No matter what county you're in, you can get in contact with your local office and go from there. That's all I got.
Thanks, Tabitha. Anybody have any questions right now for Tabitha or for Laura? Okay, so then next we'll have Margaret with PFI. I do want to say I talked to Beth a little bit about, and I think Beth was planning to talk about LFPA, but then I think Margaret is also going to talk about LFPA. So hopefully there's a little bit of different information that you have, but
Okay, mine is
it's
also pretty quick, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
okay.
Or my
And
LFPA
then
section.
yeah, okay. The RFSI is a brand new program, and that's a pretty exciting one. So I'll turn it
I'll
over
spend
to
more
Margaret.
time. I can spend more time on that than
Okay.
All right. So if I've done this right, everyone is seeing a PowerPoint, correct?
Yep, you got it.
Okay. So hi, my name is Margaret Chamas. I'm the Livestock Viability Manager with Practical Farmers of Iowa. So I am not the one overseeing or an expert in all of these programs, but I can at least point you to the right person, and I can do a general overview of a lot of these programs. Practical Farmers of Iowa is a nonprofit, farmer-led, farmer-driven organization. We have been known mostly for our work doing on-farm research and a lot of field days, a lot of educational events led by farmers. Farmers are our experts. More recently, like within the last year or two, we formally created a department for what we call farm viability. And so that is more of the technical and financial assistance programs for farmers in and around Iowa. And so again, I'm leading the livestock portion of those. We have folks focused on habitat and conservation, horticulture and local foods, field crops, and in particular cover crops. So a little bit of everything. So I'm going to go through a whole bunch of the different programs we have that are either funding or significant business support for farmers, particularly those growing I'll say like table food a bit more than say like large scale row crops. So first is our savings incentive program. So we have two we have one flagship business support program, and that is the savings incentive program. Beginning farmers get a mentor They create a business plan. They get one-on-one time, one-on-one attention from some experts in whichever branch of farming they're looking at going into. And throughout this period, they're also slowly investing money in a bank account. And at the end of their SIP participation, any amount they have in there is doubled. It's matched by PFI up to, I think, $2,400. So it's a great way to get a little bit of extra cash for some sort of capital purchase, as well as a bunch of business support. We also have a newer program that is on a hiatus right now, but it was pretty successful its first time around. So farm business coaching is for what we call intermediate beginning farmers. So the technical definition of a beginning farmer from the USDA is 10 years or less in operation. And so while Savings Incentive Program is focused on the early stage beginning farmers, farm business coaching is focused on the ones who are kind of at that 5 to 10 years of production. So these are folks who've kind of gone through the basics. They know how to produce something, but maybe looking at what's the next step for my farm business. So they get an in-depth analysis with a coach, an expert in farm financial analysis, and then they determine some particular advanced coaching, whether it's marketing or whether it's record keeping or whether it's legal advice on business structures. And there's no cost to the farmers, or rather they're reimbursed for the expenses of these. So pretty beneficial. I cannot say when either of these will reopen again. SIP usually reopens. It's an annual program. I expect it to reopen next. I want to say it's spring. Farm business coaching, not as certain when this one will reopen, but worth keeping an eye out for if you've been doing this a couple of years. Now, particularly for local food farmers, we have a produce safety cost share program. This will open again in the fall. For this, growers who are specialty crop growers in Iowa are eligible to get cost shares for food safety improvements. So some eligible expenses are listed on the bottom: walk-in coolers, food contact surfaces. So it has to be produce safety related. Can't purchase land or anything like that, but really beneficial. The way this works, it's a cost share more similar to say an equip, where you have to spend a certain amount of money in order to get that $2,000 back. So I believe you spend $2,200 and we'll get $2,000 back as a reimbursement. Link at the bottom to take you directly to the site about that. I'll blaze through LFPA, but basically for farmers who want to get a fair price and especially sell at scale, we're part of the LFPA program that helps farmers get connected to larger scale buyers, food access organizations. So selling through food hubs, food banks, there's floor prices established, essentially. Really, really, really beneficial. But I will leave that to Beth. The newer one, RFSI, is Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure. So this is a new funding program. And again, unfortunately, Natasha couldn't be here. I'm not the best one to speak on this. So there are a couple different funding types within RFSI. This is a program overall looking to strengthen kind of the middle of the supply chain you see on that graphic in the above right. So not the production of foods or food products, but processing, value add, and then aggregation and distribution. So there are two types of funding opportunities. First is the one that we figure most farmers will be looking at. These are equipment only grants. So this is the equipment to do that processing, that value add, or that aggregation and distribution. Like a garlic press, or a giant salad spinner, or coolers, refrigerators, label makers, things like that. These can be $10,000 up to $100,000, and a 10% match is required. So you do have to have some cash on hand, essentially, in order to do this. The process for this is to submit a pre-proposal between now and March 8th. And then if you are selected, if your pre-proposal is approved, there will be a full proposal due in about another month. There is help along the way. So this is not you just submitting an application into the void and then you will just get told eventually, nope, yours wasn't good enough. We are doing our best to respond to applications that come through. And if there's an issue, identify it up front. So the applicant has time to kind of make edits or think out a different part of their whatever their ask is. So we will really help with this. So I'd say get on this early, get on that pre-proposal sooner than later if it's something you're interested in doing, so that we can help if there's anything lacking. So that's the lower dollar amount, but still significant equipment only grant. We also have, or there also are, infrastructure grants. So these are much larger scale. This is not taking a farm to the next stage of scale or production. This is more like creating an entirely new thing. So this is more like a like it says at the bottom, capital investments, a building, planning of a facility, development of a market, things like that. This is a much bigger scale, also has a lot more required up front. So there's a 50+% match required, although that is reduced somewhat for underserved applicants. The timeline is also a bit different on this. Pre-proposals are only open until February 23rd, and then full proposals will be due March 15th. So again, if you've got an idea for this, please go in and put that application in, put that pre-proposal in. We will do our best to work with you and help iron out any little problems. But we do expect that most individual farmers will be looking more at that equipment only grant. PFI has a couple other funding programs that I wanted to throw out here, just knowing that there might be a huge variety of farmers who eventually look at this. So we also have some habitat and conservation cost share programs. And actually, I think especially our precision conservation cost share program, that is in partnership with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, if I'm correct. We also have a beneficial insects cost share, and that one is specifically targeted at small and urban farms. That's in partnership with Xerces Society. On the field crop side, we will have another round of cover crop cost share. So this is getting, I think it's usually like $10 an acre for fall seeded cover crops, and that reopens in the fall or late summer. We are also cost sharing for folks to add more small grains to the rotation. And that is open currently through July 1st. So again, small grains are going to be going in sooner than later. So that program is available now. And then we are encouraging folks to cut down on the amount of nitrogen fertilizer they're using. So we're helping provide a risk protection program. So if you cut your nitrogen rate and yield drops too low, you get paid back for that. That is open through March 31st. All of these, if you go to practicalfarmers.org, programs and then cost share, it'll get you can select from there which sub focus you want to look at. And mine is the grazing infrastructure cost share, which will open again. It's in September. So this is funding for portable temporary equipment to get more livestock grazing more acres. And that one specifically, oh gosh, I think we have a guaranteed 20 slots that will open this fall, and we are waiting to hear back about funding that would let us provide for dozens more. All right. If someone has a question, they can holler now. I am going to try and switch to the RFSI web page because it's fairly intuitive, but I wanted to make sure I show where that where folks go to if they need. All right, I stopped that screen share. Let me go back to the screen. Oh, I did something.
I was looking at the website earlier. Is there like an individual person that is a contact? I see the info at email, but is that the best way to contact?
I think the best thing to do, and again, I apologize because there is an info at our Iowa RFSI. I am not sure who that email ends up with. But this, so I navigated to iowarfsi.org and then hit grants on the menu over here. This frequently asked questions is being continuously updated. I did hear that because as more and more people submit proposals, and we're learning, oh, this is a common issue or a common misconception. This FAQ is being updated continuously. And that should be pretty helpful to folks. The pre-proposal, okay, you can look at the questions here. When you submit the form, from what I understand, everything you're filling out here is going to be very similar to what the final full proposal will be requiring. So we're not asking you to do all the same work twice. But again, once this, okay, Sarah Carlson is currently listed as the main contact for application related stuff. So sarah.carlson@practicalfarmers.org. Once all this gets submitted, there's a couple pages, I believe, of it, but that does, she was asking me about it earlier today. We got an application in that there were a few questions about. And so again, we as a team are looking at the applications that come through and trying to work out on the front end what might need to be changed to make it a more successful pre-proposal and have a better likelihood of getting funded in the long run. So yeah, again, this is one of the more pressing deadlines. So iowarfsi.org, and then go to the grants to pick, figure out which grant is most applicable to you. I will stop that share, and I'm not seeing any questions, not hearing any questions. So I guess it's whoever is next.
Okay. I do want to say that if anybody, any Southwest Iowa producers who are interested in that, reach out to us too if you want help with an application. We would love to help with that. I know that middle of the supply chain is one thing we're always hearing about when you need more processing and that kind of stuff. So we would love to help if you are interested in applying. Let's see. Let's go to Rob. I'll make Rob a conference. All right, Rob, are you ready?
I am ready. Let me just grab my slides here real quick. And I will switch those to slide mode. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Rob Myers. I am from just a little further south down at University of Missouri, but I work with the North Central Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. So SARE is a USDA funded program that is budgeted at $50 million a year. That money is allocated to 4 regional offices, and in our case, for the North Central region, including Iowa. The money flows through the University of Minnesota, but we have staff across the region, including myself at University of Missouri. So I'm one of 2 people who lead this regional program, the other being Beth Nelson at University of Minnesota. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the different grant opportunities we have through this program and other resources. But first, I'll just tell you that this is a very grassroots-based program. So we not only give money out to farmers as well as other types of grants, but we also have farmers making the decisions about who should get funded. And I think that's a really cool aspect of this program. As I mentioned, we have 4 regions. Iowa is part of this North Central region, along with a total of 12 states. Within our region, we offer 6 different grant programs. I'm going to focus on just a few of these, but SARE's been around for quite a while now, dating back to 1988. We've given out over 7,000 projects. Many of those have directly funded farmers. I didn't have a chance to look up how many we funded in Iowa, but I'm quite certain it's over 100 projects with farmers have probably been funded in Iowa, so there are quite a few of those around the state. So let's talk about that Farmer Rancher grant program. So this is kind of a unique grant program from USDA, and grants are a little different from going in and signing up for incentive payments or cost shares. So with those, of course, have been hearing from other folks this evening, you're typically doing a very specific practice or maybe a group of practices. With a grant project, it's maybe, I guess you could say it's more about trying out an idea. So it's not necessarily doing a practice all across your farm, but it's trying out an idea to see if it could work more broadly on your farm. So it really can be almost anything related to the production activities of the farm or even the marketing activities. So it could be trying a new pest control method. You could be trying a couple different methods of cover cropping. If it's livestock, could be trying some different fencing or watering systems, or maybe a couple different feeding systems with the livestock, different forages. If it's with vegetables, could be trying different irrigation systems or harvesting methods, could be developing some small scale equipment to work with the farming operation. What it's not intended to do is like just give money to a farmer to get started farming. It's really to try an idea on the farm. It's also not just to buy like a tractor or something. It's not that type of thing. So these grants can be up to $15,000, and a grant is something you don't have to repay it. So it's like a loan, you get money. Typically, these $15,000 grants, a good chunk of it will go to pay for the farmer's time. So you might write in your time at a certain hourly rate. You can use some of it towards smaller scale equipment. We typically, again, would not pay for a tractor or something, but if you, for example, needed a particular type of rototiller attachment to do the testing that you're doing, or some other equipment specific to the idea you're testing. Often it's supplies. So if you were with livestock testing a few different types of fencing strategies, you could write in the money for the fencing on a smaller scale. Again, not to fence the whole farm, but to try out an idea in a particular area. So we fund about 40 to 50 of these a year. Again, it's farmers making the decisions on these grants. We bring together a group of about 20 farmers and then divide them up. We have some that specialize more in looking at the livestock projects, some more on field crops, some more on vegetables, and so on. With each of our grant programs, we give out the money once a year, and the deadline varies depending on the particular program. So in the case of our Farmer Rancher Grant Program, those are due normally in early December. So the next competition will be this coming December. And then those are reviewed in the winter, and you'd find out by early February if you're getting that funding, and then the money would be available typically in March or April. So the coordinator of that program is currently Joan, and she'd be happy to answer any questions people have, or I can try to help as we have some time this evening too. So that's our Farmer Rancher program. Another way that we help fund projects with farmers is to do a group project. So if you've got 3 or more farmers that want to work together on a project, we call that our partnership grant program. And normally an ag professional is working with that group of 3 or more farmers. So it doesn't have to be exactly 3, it could be 5, 6, whatever number makes sense. The ag professional can be almost anybody that works professionally in agriculture. So it could be an extension agent, a nonprofit educator, a soil and water district employee, an ag consultant like a livestock consultant or soils consultant. It can be a farmer, but whoever that person is kind of takes responsibility for receiving the funds, and typically part of the funding is going to the individual farmers to pay for part of their time and supplies. Some of the money can go to the agriculture professional, and typically would, to pay for part of their time. So those are $50,000 projects, or up to $50,000. We give out about 20 of those a year. These are funded for a 2-year period. And this application deadline's a little earlier. It's in mid-October. Again, the funds would be available the following spring. So I help coordinate this program with Beth Nelson if you do have questions about this option. We also wanted to mention our youth educator program, and this is one that a broad range of people can apply for. Probably any of you listening would be relevant if you were working with youth to do this. These are currently projects of up to 6,000, so they're relatively small, but pretty easy to apply for. They're fairly short applications. Could be VOAG teachers, 4-H educators, or any volunteer that works with a youth group that is doing something related to agriculture and sustainability. So it could be having kids get involved in growing food in different ways. It could be having them try growing food in a small greenhouse or high tunnel, or just raised beds, whatever makes sense. But these are pretty flexible. Often educators that teach school may do a summer project with some kids, but also could be during a school year. So we do a more modest number of these, about 15 a year, and those applications are due in November. So if you're kind of wondering, well, I'd like to see what types of things people have done in the past, you can, you don't have to write down this long URL, just put into your Google search engine SARE projects, and that'll pop up our search engine. And then you can go in and look, like specifically in Iowa, you could do a search for what projects have been done in Iowa for farmer rancher grants. And you'd see a long list of those projects. You could search by topic. You could say, in the I want to do something on beekeeping in the Midwest. You can search specific to beekeeping topics. So that's a really helpful tool. And the nice thing is you'll see contact information for the other farmers that have had the projects. And pretty much all those folks are happy to share their experience if you wanted to do that. Besides giving out grants, Sarah also has a wealth of resources, information resources. We have books, bulletins, fact sheets, videos. They're all available for free, with the slight exception if you want a print copy of our books, there is a nominal cost for that. However, you can read the books for free online, and a few of them are even available for free in Kindle form. So we have about 20 different book topics, an equal number of bulletins, and like I said, lots and lots of fact sheets and videos. So we actually have quite a large staff devoted to producing that information, and I certainly recommend you take a look at those resources. So I'll stop there, Lance, and see if there are any questions.
All right. Anybody have any questions for Rob? These are another one that, especially the farmer rancher, if you're interested in applying, we could help. Golden Hills could help. Or if you have a project idea for the partnership one, we could potentially apply. So just let us know. And I have Rob's email in the spreadsheet link that I sent. So if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to him. Don't see anything. Okay, thanks, Rob.
Sure.
All right. Next we have Aaron. Let's see. Aaron here.
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. How are you? Okay. I think you
Oops.
should be able to share now.
Okay, I was kind of freaking out like you couldn't hear me for a minute there. So let me do a couple clicks here and figure this out. Share screen. Okay, should be good. Okay, so we'll go through this and I'll try and keep it to a pretty tight time frame. There's a lot of material, but as Lance said, my name's Aaron Smith. I help support the Iowa Finance Authority's Beginning Farmer programs. So thanks for inviting us to speak. Similar to, I think, Margaret, who spoke a couple presentations ago. I'm not the direct program contact for this. I'm definitely not the expert in this. We'll kind of cover the contact information for the people that are, but I can still be of some use here if talking about the programs that we have. I am going to move pretty quickly to give a high-level overview of our Beginning Farmer programs, which consist of 2 loan programs and a tax credit program. I would note also, just really quick housekeeping, that we do have a recorded webinar presentation available at our website, iowafinance.com. If I go over something or skip over a slide or two, in the interest of time, you can always go back and view it. And I think, Lance will also provide this PowerPoint presentation to send back to everybody, so you can have a copy of that as well. So we have 2 program staff that work with these loan and tax credit programs on the regular basis. Tammy Nebola, who some of you may know or have seen around. She's a specialist on the loan programs. And then Nikki Howell manages the Beginning Farmer Tax Credit Program. Their contact information's here. Again, if there are questions about these programs that come up, please feel free to reference that and reach out with any questions. Okay, so with these programs that we administer, the eligibility requirements are the same for all of them, whether it's a loan or tax credit program. And that's going to be primarily based on the net worth of the beginning farmer at the time of application. In 2024, the net worth requirement is under $833,000. This is an amount that changes each year. So, in 2025, it's going to reflect a different amount. Furthermore, you do need to be at least 18 years old, be a resident of Iowa, and then be an operator of the farm that you're taking on. Beginning farmers in our program also need to have sufficient education, training, and experience for the project that you're applying for, as well as access to working capital machinery, etc. The last couple bullet points really just address, for our programs, it's a little bit different than some other beginning farmer programs, whereby we're really focused only on the net worth requirement and not necessarily how many years you've been operating or working in the industry. As long as you are a beginning farmer that is coming in under the net worth limit, it doesn't matter if you're farming for 1 year or 50 years, you're still going to qualify as a beginning farmer according to our program. So it's an important distinction. Applications for all of our programs require, obviously just the simple 1 or 2 page application form for whether it's a loan or tax credit. We require a current financial statement that's signed by a financial representative. We require the beginning farmer to complete just a simple background form, which summarizes their education, training, experience, and so on. And then obviously the application fee submitted along with each application. The first main section here covers the tax credit program in further detail, which I think is a really nice program for beginning farmers that encourages asset owners to lease their land, equipment, facilities to a beginning farmer, because then the asset owner, the landowner, is able to rent it and receive a tax credit, which goes towards reducing their Iowa state income taxes. For example, if you're going to be cash renting a farm, whatever amount you're going to be paying in cash rent, the tax credit is going to be equal to 5% of that annual cash rent amount. For crop shares, the tax credit is equal to 15% of the asset owner's projected income on that crop share lease. And then we can do flex leases as well in certain circumstances, which do carry an additional benefit of up to 15% of the bonus. We allocate the tax credit each year of the lease, which is spelled out in the approval letter. So depending on how many years the lease is, each year there will be a tax credit awarded for that asset owner to claim. Tax credit certificates are mailed out at the end of each year. And at this time, our program has been allocated by the legislature $12 million to award in tax credits. So key requirements of beginning farmer tax credit program. We do have an application deadline of August 1st. So all the applications that come in, they just have to be postmarked by that date in order for them to meet that deadline. The application fee is something that's changed a little bit in the last couple of years, but essentially it ranges a little bit based on how many years the lease is and how many acres are being taken on. So larger acre projects for longer leases are going to carry a higher fee than smaller projects for maybe a 2-year lease or something. We also require the FSA Form 156 to be submitted with the application. Obviously get that from the local FSA office. That's the best way that we have to verify where the farm's located, the number of acres that are being leased, and also obviously list the owners of the farm and any operators of the farm. And one thing that we stress, because we see it every year with our applications, is as far as things that we need to always be going back and maybe fixing or correcting, requesting more information, is that the parties listed on the lease and 156 form and the application have to match. So when we're matching up those names, just to make sure that the beginning farmer is operating the farm, the lessor, the entity leasing is actually the owner of the farm listed on the 156 form. So that's kind of an important thing to think about. As far as actual kind of more specific requirements, lease terms, we can do anywhere between 2 years and 5 years of leases. Once your lease is up, beginning farmer can reapply for the program. When you do reapply, we just ask that all the application documents be submitted again. So we can't just do an extension or anything like that. You have to actually recertify your net worth and go through all of that again, because obviously those requirements, as I mentioned before, change from year to year. If you're doing a cash rent or a crop share, the amounts of the cash rent don't have to be the same for each year of the lease. So you may be doing a 5-year lease, and the asset owner thinks that if prices are going up, they may build that into the lease agreement. That's okay. It just has to be stated in the lease when it's submitted in to the program. So as far as then the value on the cash rent lease can't be more than 30% of the average in the county for the last ISU survey. So it's I guess a little bit of a restriction that we have, and that's county by county. We do have that referenced on our website. There's a document that lists every county as well as the surveyed amount with the 30% limitation there already calculated, so you can see based off the amount that you're paying for your lease whether you're exceeding that amount or not. If you do have an application that exceeds that amount, like let's say you're leasing at 225 an acre, and that exceeds that 30% exception, we'll just ask you that you either go back and renegotiate the lease down to that amount, or we just won't be able to process that tax credit application. Leases can be with closely related family members, so we don't have any exclusion for renting from your parents or any other family members. It's just that the asset owner or family member would be the one receiving the tax credit at the end of the year. The next few slides provide a couple of examples, just simple math on how we actually calculate the tax credit award amount for both each crop share and a cash rent. I'm actually just going to kind of skip over these slides to save a little bit of time, because they really just walk through calculations. That makes for a pretty boring presentation, I think, but they're there for your reference if you want to read through those. So that was the cash rent. That's the crop share on that page. So the next slide, just I guess wrapping up the tax credit section here. This is our last slide for the tax credit program. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we can allocate a maximum of up to $12 million each year for those tax credit certificates that are issued. Each credit can be carried forward for 10 years, but it can't be used on a prior year's taxes. And then as far as the maximum credit award per lease per year, that's going to be $50,000. That's a little bit of a change from a few years ago, where it used to be a $50,000 aggregate limitation on asset owners. Now it's you can have a $50,000 lease with one beginning farmer, another $50,000 tax credit per lease on another lease with another beginning farmer. It's just per lease per year. It expands the utilization, and it makes asset owners more willing to participate and allow their land to be accessed by beginning farmers. Well, that covers the basics of the beginning farmer tax credit program. So just to change gears a little bit into more of a loan program, I know we've heard a lot about grants from some of the other presenters. These are loans, so they're not grants, but with the beginning farmer loan program, this program is able to be used to purchase land, depreciable machinery or equipment, breeding livestock, but not feeders. That's we can't do feeder livestock with this particular program. Unfortunately, we can do existing buildings or improvements to new buildings. However, these loans can't be used for any type of operating expenses or to refinance any existing loans that the beginning farmer might have. So the way that this program works is, beginning farmer will still go get the financing through a bank, and then IFA is actually going to issue a tax-exempt bond to the lender. And then those bonds are going to be federally tax exempt, tax free on the interest on those bonds. So essentially, the bank that's lending with that bond can pass through or in a conduit fashion provide a savings of interest costs to the beginning farmer. Essentially, this is our version of an interest rate reduction program. So we found, as you can see on one of these bullets here, that the lenders are generally able to provide an interest rate discount of around 20 to 25% below what they would ordinarily lend on through this program. And again, the last point here just indicates because the financing is ultimately through the lender, IFA doesn't get involved with any of the negotiations. The beginning farmer is negotiating the terms, interest rate, and everything with the lender directly. So we're just providing the tax exempt benefit through this program. As far as amounts, there are limitations to what we can do here. So this year, it just got adjusted up a little bit. The maximum bond amount for this program is just under $650,000. Within that limitation, there are sort of subcategories. So for buildings and farm improvements, new depreciable property, the limitation is $250,000. And for used depreciable property like breeding livestock, etc., the limitation is 62,500. So 650 is the maximum, regardless of what's being done. And then within that, there's still some other limitations. Some more restrictions for using the bond program is that no more than 5% of the proceeds of the loan can go towards purchasing a dwelling. So if there's a house on the property that's being purchased, it has to be less than 5% of the borrowed amount can go towards purchasing that home. Also, no more than 25% of the proceeds can go towards CRP ground. A little point on that, though, if some of the ground is in CRP, it's not necessarily a deal breaker for using this program. If the land is coming out of contract within the next 12 months, we can still work with that. However, if it's not going to be coming out of contract within the upcoming 12 months, there's still a limitation that only 25% of the bond amount can be used to purchase that land. So a little bit of flexibility in there, but a lot of restrictions still. Some other eligibility factors here. We can work with closely related parties in this program. So for that, we consider parents, grandparents, siblings, etc. But you do still have to go through a third-party lender. So if it's going to be a close related party, you're not able to do any kind of contract sale or anything like that. The property also has to be sold at fair market value, and we determine that through just an independent appraisal. And then obviously if the land comes in, or if whatever's being purchased comes in at less than the appraised value, we're not able to do that. So basically the appraisal has to match or even, I guess, exceed or come in under the amount that's being purchased. So for contract sales, the middle bullet point there, we can do those with anybody else who's not necessarily an immediate family member, as long as they're not your parents, grandparents. So aunts, uncles, cousins, they're not immediate family. That's okay. So if you're going to do a contract sale with your uncle, that's allowed under this program and not prohibited. There is one additional requirement, though, here, the last bullet point. If you do now, or if you have in the past owned any farmland, you just have to have owned less than 30% of the county median farm size. So again, that varies for each county. It can be pretty restrictive, but 30% of the median, I find, tends to be actually pretty low in a lot of cases. We've already done those calculations. We use the ag census, actually, the one that just was released this last week or so. So that's now been updated and is available on our website as well. County by county lists out those limitations. We'll move towards some actual examples, and I'm not going to go line by line through this stuff because, again, math during a presentation is usually not a recipe for success. But in general, we wanted to demonstrate sort of how these programs are able to be combined with other programs to achieve pretty good savings. So this slide is demonstrating where the beginning farmer loan program can be used with FSA's 54550, which is their down payment program. So if FSA is going to require the 5% cash down payment, they're going to lend on the next 45% of the project cost at 1.875%. And that's going to be a fixed rate for 20 years. In this example, the beginning farmer loan program can come in for the remaining amount of the project, and we're assuming the maximum bond amount here at an assumed interest rate of 6 3/8, which equates to interest in the first year of $47,000 when you combine all of that. If you were to just do this through the bank with a 5% cash down payment and financing the rest of the 95% of the project cost, the first year interest would be $80,000. So right there, just in the first year alone of combining our loan program with FSA's 540/550, this beginning farmer is going to save $33,000 in interest payments alone in the first year. And I think, this is obviously taking it to the extreme using the full bond amount, but it does provide a significant amount of capital still to the beginning farmer to get into an operation, to expand an operation, and really achieve some value. The next slide is taking that kind of same concept where we're saying, okay, if you're gonna finance with our loan program, what does this look like over the full 30-year loan? So again, assuming a maximum bond rate or bond amount of about $650,000, and then that 25% interest cost reduction, over 30 years, this beginning farmer would be saving $340,000 in interest costs versus borrowing from the local bank at maybe 8.5% interest or whatever maybe prime rate is in any given day. And that's a huge amount of savings then that the beginning farmer, again, can kind of plow back into their operations as cash flow. Some other provisions and fees here for the beginning farmer loan program. We can't do this on any type of refinancing, but we do have a 60-day look back period. So what that means is if the project was financed within 60 days of when our board can approve the project, we can still go ahead and get those projects approved and closed. For fees, it's pretty simple. We just charge $100 to apply for the program, and then when the bond actually closes, when the loan closes, it's a 1.5% fee that's collected and paid to us for that. If you apply and don't actually end up closing the loan, there's no fee, no additional fee that's required. It's just the $100 application fee that was paid. The next loan program we have is our loan participation program, or LPP, which is set up to supplement a down payment if you need to finance those costs. With this program, IFA takes last in, last out participation with a lender. And since we do work directly with lenders on this loan program, we can't do any type of contract sales. So that's not something we can do here. With this loan program, you can think of it like we're actually buying back a portion of the project. Excuse me. So with that, we can buy back up to 30% of the costs, or up to $200,000. Our piece, at least as of this year, is going to be at 5% interest, and that's a fixed interest rate for a full 10-year term loan. The loans, though, are amortized over varying amounts. So depending on the type of project that's being financed, if you're doing something like land, we're going to amortize that essentially over 30 years, 20 to 30 years. On facilities, we amortize over a 12-year period. And then on anything else, it just would depend on whatever the useful life is. So machinery or breeding livestock, the useful life is then assessed, and that's what we use as the amortization term for those loans. The last bullet point here on the loan participation program, we don't have any restrictions for related party transactions. So that's those same rules, or the rules about closely related parties don't apply on this program as well. Since we're going to be buying back a portion of the loan with our own funds at risk, with that last in, last out participation, we do some of our own loan underwriting here on top of what the bank might do. So they're listed here. We'll kind of hit a couple of them, but again, I would say this is going to be something I probably have you refer back to this specific slide. But current assets to liabilities, we want to be above 1.1. Debt to asset ratio less than 80%. Debt coverage, so the amount of income over the amount of debt that you're paying back, is 1.2 times. Some other we have some restrictions here on off-farm income. We have the loan to value. We want this to be less than 100% of the appraised value. We do go typically right up to 100% on the appraisals on a lot of these projects, though, which is, I think, something that's a little bit unique. I already kind of mentioned that we're requiring third-party appraisals just to make sure that the value is going to come back to support the loan amounts. And again, the last thing here on this slide to keep in mind is with this underwriting, if a beginning farmer maybe doesn't meet one or two of the underwriting criteria, that's okay. We understand that happens, especially that these are folks that are typically just getting started in their careers. So what our loan committee will do typically, if that's the case, is they'll go back and ask that the borrower or the applicant obtain some sort of a guarantee from maybe a parent, grandparent, or some sort of capital injection, which is a little bit less common, like a gift or something like that to improve the security of the loan. And that will help to kind of cure whichever of these factors is not being met on the underwriting. So we do our best to actually work with the beginning farmers and help them to get above the limitations there that we have. The next slide, actually a couple slides, we're doing the same thing that we did on the beginning farmer loan program for this one. We're just using an example. If you're going to use our loan participation program to purchase or construct a hog facility, in this case. So with this one, we're going to do 30% of the project costs with the loan participation loan. With the loan participation, and that's 5% at $200,000. Using the beginning farmer loan program, if you remember, we have a $250,000 limitation on facilities. So when you have that as the next line down at the 25% reduced interest rate, the remaining amount's just going to be a traditional financing through the bank at whatever prime might be. Let's say in this case 8%, 8.5%. With that being the case, first year interest again on that type of a structure, about $51,000 in that first year. 100% of this project being financed with the bank just at that 8.5%, $63,000. So not as good as the 545.50 example that we gave before with the loan program, but still providing I think quite a bit of value. In the first year alone, it's about $12,300 worth of interest cost savings. The next slide shows doing the same thing that we did before. If you were to do this over the life of the loan versus just a traditional financing, all in over a 10-year financing is going to be about $60,000 worth of interest cost savings over the life of the loan when you use the loan participation program along with the financing from the bank. So again, quite a bit of value being provided there. This slide covers how IFA's beginning farmer loan programs can be used with FSA's guarantee to finance a project. Again, I'm gonna kind of skip over this in the interest of time. But again, the slide's there for your review. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. FSA also has staff that can talk through this as well if you're interested in combining these programs together to finance a project. Here, this slide, again, we can go over pretty quick because the provisions and fees on the loan participation program that we have are the same as they are on the beginning farmer loan program. The same look back period that we can go back 60 days. If you've closed a loan, we can kind of bring it forward and still work with you. There's just a $100 application fee, and then again a 1.5% fee of the 1.5% of the actual amount of the loan as a fee at the closing is owed. As far as timeline, process is something where we can't really act very quickly in a lot of cases because there is board involvement and public hearings and things like that to actually issue some of this debt. So we typically say, from the time of the application being received to when we can actually close and fund a loan, it's about 5 to 6 weeks, which is pretty quick, all things considered, for this type of program. But you can see here, this outlines the projects as they come through. They have to be considered by our credit committee and then by the IFA board. it has the final approval before closing. And as we kind of come to a conclusion here on my portion, the remaining slides in our PowerPoint here provide a nice summary of the beginning farmer programs that IFA administers. So working down the table here, the first row, the tax credit program really is to provide those opportunities to lease or to expand your farming operation. That's the beginning farmer benefit. As far as the asset owners, obviously they're going to be able to reduce their income taxes by receiving that tax credit and filing that with their taxes each year. The second row there, the beginning farmer loan program, again, this is the interest rate reduction program that we have for a beginning farmer. They're able to take advantage of lower interest rates to expand their farming operation, maybe gain a new financing option and combine it with other programs that are available to really leverage those options to increase the cash flow to their operation and grow their operation over time. As far as the lenders on this side, contract sellers are going to get both federal and state tax exemption on the interest for the loans. Lenders are going to get federal exemption only. So the loans are going to qualify for lenders under their Community Reinvestment Act provisions. So there is that added benefit for a bank to participate. Lastly, as far as benefit on the lending side, I think it is really important and kind of a nice thing for ag lenders to be able to offer this program in conjunction with some of the other programs that are available. It helps them to reach more farmers and expand their client base a little bit. For loan participation program, again, in summary, it does provide a lower interest rate over what the market might be providing. But again, the biggest thing here is really that down payment assistance. We can offer competitive lending rates. They're not always the best, but they're still below where most banks are on any given day or any given year. And then also, as far as this being a little bit of a risk share as well, since we're participating in the loan with the bank up to 30% of the amount of the loan, or $200,000. That's taking a little bit of the risk off the bank and helping maybe the bank's underwriting standards as far as how they're bringing these projects through. The last slide again is just a review, just another slide at the end to talk through or to demonstrate the eligibility requirements. I won't go over those all again. Those are all. This is just kind of a regurgitation of that from earlier. And then some contact information. I had it before for Tammy and for Nikki, but this is just the general contact information where our office is located in Des Moines. We have a shared inbox there, iadd@iowafinance.com. Any questions, go directly to the three of us, basically. So we'll be able to route whatever questions come in via email to the appropriate specialist. So that's the end of it. That's all we had to kind of go over. It's a lot of information. I went through 33 slides, I think, pretty quick. So I'm happy to take questions, or I don't know, Lance, how you want to end things here, but
Yeah, if anybody has questions right now, we can ask. Otherwise, we have your contact information, so we can follow up.
Sure.
Don't see any questions, so.
Okay, great.
So next we have Beth.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to share. And it's been fun to listen to everyone before and hear all the other opportunities. I'm gonna start sharing my screen and okay, so I am sharing some slides from Tammy Stotts. She is the point of contact for several grant opportunities I will talk about first, and these are her slides. So if you have questions about these, Margaret did a great job covering several of these details earlier, and otherwise I will be happy to put people in contact with Tammy so that they can learn more. But oh goodness, let's see. There we go. So specialty crop block grant is the first one. that she wanted me to share about this. This grant is funded annually through the USDA. Specialty crops include fruits, vegetables, trees, nuts, tree nuts, dried fruits, horticultural and nursery crops. In Iowa for 2024, we have over $350,000 to allocate or allocated for Iowa this year, and grants up to $30,000 are awarded competitively. The duration has to be 30 months or under, and priorities are reevaluated based on the outreach, and grants will be due for 2024 on March 1st. And also, IDOLS is seeking individuals to serve on the review committee. So if you are interested in serving on the review committee, please contact Tammy. There's more information about this on the IDOLS website. If you, she included the link here. Otherwise, you can also go to iowaagriculture.gov and click on programs and scroll down the list to specialty crop block grant. So that is an easier way of finding the information. The LFPA is a local food purchase assistance program. Iowa was awarded $5.6 million for a 3-year program. It's funded again through USDA, and the purpose is to purchase and distribute over $4 million of Iowa produced foods at a fair price to farmers, communities, and the families who lack access. There are 3 overarching goals for this program, and several steering committee members, organizations have come together to implement the LFPA in Iowa. Here you can see the distribution beginning in 2022 of the different entities and the procurement breakdown. And LFPA by the numbers, grown and produced in Iowa, bordering counties is the definition. Local products, again, includes produce, small grains, meat, dairy, eggs, mushrooms, honey, and maple syrup. Minimally processed products are also included, such as yogurt. You can go to iowalfpa.org/numbers to learn more. LFS is Local Food for Schools. This is another program supported through the USDA that IDOLS is administering. IDOLS was awarded $2.2 million for this program, and Iowa Valley RC&D works in tandem with Teresa Wimmer-Sledge of ISU Extension to manage this. And you can see these participants and the breakdown from round 1. And there is a program recap that's available that Teresa has prepared. And the last that I have from Tammy with her slides is the information about RFSI, the Resilient Food System Infrastructure Grant. And Margaret did a fantastic job covering this. Highlights, again, just recapping what she already shared. Purpose of the program is to build resilience in the middle of the food supply chain. There's a cooperative agreement in place for over $5.2 million, and that includes 3 segments. This will last through over 4 years through May of 2027, and the 3 segments include a statewide supply chain coordination, infrastructure grants that have the 1-to-1 match, and the equipment only grants. And here is a highlight of the time frames. A little bit more detail, and Margaret again showed us how to access this on the website. So appreciate that information that she shared. And again, Tammy Stotts is the point of contact in IDOLS for this program if you're interested in learning more. And let me stop sharing that and start sharing. A different program. Okay, I would like to share with you about the Choose Iowa grants that are available. All right, too many screens are set up. Can you all see this now?
Yep, we see Choose Iowa.
Awesome, great. Okay, so Choose Iowa, we have a couple different grants available. The beginning though, if you have not heard of Choose Iowa yet, it is a brand new program through the Iowa Department of Agriculture. The vision of Choose Iowa is to connect consumers with Iowa produce and food products and expand markets for Iowa farmers. So there are two main key components within the Choose Iowa program. The first is the brand program to promote Iowa ag products, and the second would be the grant programs. The first grant program that I wanted to share with you is the Value Added Grant. This is in its third year. The first year we had $248,000 to award, over $1.3 thousand dollars, $1.3 million were requested in funds. We ended up being able to award 13 projects that had a combined value of $860,000. Last year, we had $3,000 to award. The total funds requested were pretty similar in scope to the first year, and we were able to award 28 projects. This year, we have the same again as last year to award of $463,000. Total funds requested are over $1 million, and the value of the awarded projects, we have not announced this yet. The announcement is coming soon, and initial projects were identified this week, and recipients will be notified shortly, with an announcement coming in March. So I didn't want to give away too much on the slide yet, since it's not publicly announced yet. Some previous projects that have been awarded through this grant: Local Harvest CSA put in an on-farm processing kitchen and expanded their freezer space. Franklin Street Brewing added a new canning line with equipment and a labeler. The Van Manen Sweet Corn and Produce, they added on-farm processing and storage space with a dedicated customer pickup location. And then Twisted River Farm in Mitchell is building an on-farm store that is set to open next month, which will enable them to have dedicated packing space, and they expanded their walk-in cooler. So these are some examples of projects that have been funded through the Value Added Grant. Skyview Farms has expanded their direct sales to include meat, and they've developed a meat and egg food hub. So the goal or the focus behind the Value Added Grant is to increase sales of Iowa ag products that increase production capacity or expand market access for value added projects. And one of the unique aspects about the Value Added Grant is that an individual organization can apply, or business. You don't have to be part of an association, and the funds can benefit you as the business directly. You can request up to $25,000. It is a cost share grant, so there is a 1-to-1 match, and the reimbursement is given after the project is completed. The funds are not available upfront. And of note, you do not have to be a member of the brand program to be able to apply for the grant. Some of the eligible project examples, like we talked about earlier, would be equipment for production of value-added ag products, food hubs, coolers, refrigeration, grading, packing, labeling, packaging, sorting, refrigerated trucks that would help you access new markets, dedicated delivery as well, and food processing, even training. So some of the projects considerations: projects must increase sales of Iowa ag products that increase product capacity or expand your market access. Can't be in progress until a grant is awarded, so it's not for anything that is prior. If you do have a huge project that is in progress, you could mention that in your application, but the specific part that is in the application has to occur within the grant time frame. Has to be completed within 12 months or less and be conducted in Iowa. The application is intended to be very simple and hopefully as easy as possible for busy businesses and farms to apply for. simply describe your business, give a little history, describe your project, give some details, describe how your project is going to increase the sales of Iowa ag products. Describe your budget. Please give a bunch of details on the timeline about how you will accomplish this within 12 months or less, and describe the outcomes that your project is going to accomplish. There are criteria that each grant is scored against. That information is available online. I would definitely recommend checking out the grant guidelines, looking at the eligible and ineligible expenses and the scoring criteria. That information is posted at chooseiowa.com, and then click on the grants tab or page, and there's also a budget worksheet that can help you put together a budget for your project. The timeline for the value-added grant. Mid-October is when the application period opens each year. Mid-October, usually on or as close to December 15th on a weekday at noon is the application deadline. So just one word of caution about noon. Don't think it's later in the day. It is at noon. Mid-February is when the recipients are contacted and the agreements are sent out for them to finalize. And then in March is when recipients are announced. A very, very new and exciting grant available through Choose Iowa is the Dairy Innovation Grant. The Iowa legislature has dedicated $750,000 in funding, and dairies can apply up to $100,000 in funding. The producer has to provide a one-to-one match for this grant. You may be able to get additional points when your grant application is scored for having more than the required match amount. In-kind contributions are not accepted is one note that I did want to highlight. And the grant funding for dairies is available for either on-farm dairy processing equipment or labor-reducing technology, such as robotic milkers, or a combination of both for a maximum of $100,000 per awardee. And again, you do not have to be a member of the brand program to be able to apply for the Dairy Innovation Grant. So timing for this, the application period for the very first time opened January 17th of this year. The application deadline was set to close earlier in February, but has been extended to noon on February 23rd. And the applications will be scored in March, and awardees will be announced in April of this year. And we anticipate being able to follow a similar time frame going forward, with the exception the application period should open much earlier than January. We're hoping for prior to Christmas later this year. Some helpful tips would be to go online to chooseiowa.com and click on grants to look for the grant guidelines and the scoring criteria, and to access the budget worksheet to help you put your application together. And some distinctions between the brand program within Choose Iowa and the grants. The brand program highlights, promotes, and celebrates the foods and beverages that are grown, raised, and made in Iowa. And it gives members the ability to use the logo on their foods to identify that their foods are from Iowa. And there are minimum criteria that the foods and beverages must meet. And eventually we do hope to expand beyond and include more Iowa ag products beyond foods and beverages. If the legislature approves this year, then we should be able to add horticultural products, Christmas trees, and natural fibers later this year. The grants side of Choose Iowa specifically supports value-added ag or dairy innovation, and membership, again, in the brand program is not required to be able to apply for these. And you can apply for either up to $25,000 in funding for value add or up to $100,000 for dairies. So brief highlights there. If you have questions, I am happy to help and find some answers. My email is beth.romer@iowaagriculture.gov. If you also would like to reach out and find out more from Tammy, I'm happy to help you get in contact with her, since she's the point of contact for the grants that I mentioned earlier before Choose Iowa. So thank you. Appreciate being able to share.
Thank you, Beth. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, then I will be the last one to go. I'll make it quick. So let me see here. Okay. So I'm gonna run through just really quick. In case anybody's not familiar, Golden Hills, we're a small nonprofit. Our mission is to collaboratively develop and lead community conservation and cultural initiatives to improve quality of life in rural Western Iowa. We do a lot with local foods, including different events and trainings like this. So if you have a topic that you want to learn more about, let us know. Jamie is also on here. She's a local foods coordinator. So this program was one thing that people said they were interested in doing, so that's why we put it together. So let us know if you want to have another program or field day or anything like that. And then that bottom one's cost share, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Laura talked about this at the beginning, but the RCPP is specifically for the West Nish, parts of the West Nish watershed. I did want to share, we're in the process right now because it's a federal program, going back and forth a lot with the NRCS, but I think we should be uh, finalizing in the next couple of weeks all of the practices that will be eligible. So the ones she mentioned are for sure probably like top 5 on this bulleted list. But we're hoping to get a few other practices that maybe aren't as common, kind of more innovative practices like prescribed grazing, fencing, silvopasture to be included as eligible practices. So stay tuned on that. Like I said, hopefully very soon we will have that finalized. If you go to the website, which is here, goldenhillsrcd.org/RCPP, you can find an interactive version of this map, so you can zoom into your land and see if you're eligible. I think you have to just have, like, if you're on the edge, I think you have to have 50% or more of your land within one of the watersheds. So, yeah, we're finalizing those practices, but that'll be a cost share program for anyone that's in those eligible watersheds. And then the other one that is brand new, and again, on this one, we're also kind of working on finalizing which practices will be eligible. But it's underserved farmer grant through Iowa DNR, but it's EPA funding to the state. So we're working with the Iowa DNR on this, but specifically for historically underserved farmers. They have a few categories of what that means. So limited resources based on income and sales. Beginning farmers, anyone who's been farming 10 years or less. Socially disadvantaged is primarily racial and ethnic minorities. And then veterans are all considered underserved. So if you are any of those categories, you would be eligible. And this one is not limited to a watershed, so it's kind of broader throughout Southwest Western Iowa. And hopefully, like I said, we're finalizing the practices, but I think if there are regenerative, especially anything related to soil health or maybe practices that aren't super common within NRCS, we're hoping that we can kind of include those in this program. So if there are practices you are interested in that you've had trouble receiving funding for, or maybe talked to NRCS and they said you weren't eligible, this might be another option for you. So that's, like I said, another brand new program, and we're just figuring out all the details now. But if you have suggestions, we would be happy to hear them. And then the final one I wanted to talk about is another new program. This one's called ALICE, Alternative Land Use Services. So it's a Canadian program. We're the first pilot in the United States, but it's really focused on, let's see, like regenerative practices as well as wildlife habitat and like nature-based solutions. So all about resilience and climate change and biodiversity. So again, different practices that aren't really common, and maybe not practices that you would be eligible for through NRCS necessarily, but just a different, this is really, I think, primarily privately funded. So like bigger corporations are putting money into this. And Kara, our executive director, is kind of leading this at Golden Hills. So feel free to reach out to her. We do have a little bit of information on our website. But you can also check out the Alice Canada website for more details about how it works up there. And then I think probably for this program, it's not going to be like you probably wouldn't be able to get funding until next year at the earliest, but kind of piloting it this year, and then hopefully in the future it will grow, and we'll have a lot more funding available, and we'll have a better list of the practices that will be eligible and the geographic restrictions. So that's what we have right now. Like I said, they're all pretty new, and so we're working out the kinks in all of them, but If you have any questions, feel free to ask now or just follow up with me via email. Anybody have questions? Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining. I know we ran a little late, but hopefully you found it worthwhile, and it was recorded, so I will send that out once we get that recording finished. And like I said, feel free to contact me and I can connect you with anybody who is on this. And it's also included in the spreadsheet link that I sent. So